So welcome back, everybody. We're now going to go for the second part of our final conference. Don't forget, if you have any questions about the following, please just write them in the chat and we will answer them afterwards. So next up is Hanna Skokanova from the Silva Taruka Research Institute for Landscape and Ornamental Gardening. And Hannah is going to present the results of their work and the strategy development for the Kyiv and the Kyivsko region. So Hannah, can you turn on your camera and your microphone, please?
I think I already did.
Oh, okay.
So, good afternoon, everyone, again. I will talk about our case study region Kyivsko, which is a region situated in southeast of Moravia of the Czech Republic. And here is the screen, actually the territory. The major GI elements are forest, deciduous, both deciduous and coniferous, some remnants of dry grasslands, and small holdings. The main issues or the main needs for GI are quite large soil erosion, quite low landscape permeability, and also quite low water retention. Therefore, we based our strategy in order or to answer these aims, which are reduction of soil erosion, better landscape permeability, and increase of water retention ability. To do so, we suggested several measures which should meet these strategic aims or actions, as you will. First of all, it's planting GI in the terms of grassland strips with or without trees, restoring woodlots, planting tree alleys and or windbreakers. Both their implementation will help in in all three aims. The second one is also realization of planned but non-existing TSS element, which I talked about earlier. Then for better landscape permeability, but also for soil erosion reduction, we would like to build a cycling path and restore field roads with accompanying GI. Also, another measure is to build or restore water ecosystems in the terms of small water bodies, wetlands, renaturing watercourses, or building dry polders. For the agriculture, because we have quite large fields, more than 60 hectares large, so we would like to make them smaller by alternating plots with different crops on erosion affected fields. And also for better landscape permeability, we would like to do surveys and map interesting unique GI elements and therefore try to um, attract people in the landscape. By using data of existing data about territorial system of ecological stability, historical land cover data, soil erosion data, present distribution of GI, and also by using outputs of connectivity and functionality analysis, we were able to identify localities where these measures can be taken to tackle the issues the Kyivsko has. And this is one of the maps we produced. This is a map showing GI elements which could be restored in order to tackle the three aims of our strategy. And it is based on the history of landscape. So this is it shows landscape elements, GI elements, which already were in the landscape of the Kyivsko and are not anymore. The main benefits of the strategy should be improved land and soil management, enhanced water management, higher resilience of the landscape, and also better health and well-being for local communities. We strongly coordinated our works with the regional authority of the Kyivsko region, and they are the key player who will implement our strategy. And also we worked with municipalities and we produced action plans for these municipalities based on our strategy. This is it from me. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Hannah. Anka, could you share my screen, please? Okay, there we go. Okay, you should see the screen now. First of all, this is the Dubner Heide case study area, which is here in Germany. And unfortunately, the partner responsible for helping develop this with the community there and the regional governments, he's not able to come today. So I'm going to take over, and hopefully I'll do it justice. We have been involved with Sven. Sven Liedl was the partner, and he works for the Saxony Foundation for Nature and the Environment. Okay, let me just. So it's the Dubner Heide Nature Park, and it straddles the border between Saxony and Saxony-Anhalt here in Germany. It's a very natural area. You can see here on this well, you can see it now on this map. You can see actually it does have quite a lot of GI within the area. It's heavily forested. There's heathlands, there's moor, and there's also agriculture. It's bordered by the two rivers, the Mulde and the major German river, the Elbe. But one of the key problems there is the disconnection between the settlements and this fantastic GI resource surrounding it. So one of the there are several key issues: improving the perception of the area and creating a value for green infrastructure and selling that value. There's a problem with improving the communication and the locals identifying themselves with that green infrastructure resource. Access, as with many GI, is an issue, both in terms of walking and cycling. And obviously, there's a need to improve connections and have a better functionality of the green infrastructure in the area. So the aims of the strategy, as they were involving and informing the residents about the benefits of the GI and connecting people with nature. And we're very lucky in the Dubner Heide. There is an association of people who live within Dubner Heide, and they've been very good partners in helping to develop this project and its goals and within the strategy, as well as the actual Dubner Nature Park administration. And the other one, which is affecting us all, and it's a key pattern throughout all of the strategies that have happened and been developed in the project, is adapting to climate change. So here you can see the strategy map. When we were developing the map, we on the right-hand side, I think it's probably quite difficult to see, but we tried to make sure that the map of the strategy was standalone. So even without the strategy document, the map would have some understanding and meaning for people. On the left-hand side, you can see the list of the action plans that were developed within the strategy. And on the right-hand side, you can see the actual key themes of the strategy. So actions that were developed with the help of both the analysis that took part in the 3 work packages and this constant interaction with the stakeholders and their feedback and going back to them with the ideas and then checking them over and assessing them and changing them. It was a constant process. We developed this the communication concept, green infrastructure, and this is really important because here it's not a very well known concept, and it's almost like a communication strategy, and that's going to help sort of map forward how we sell green infrastructure to both within the Dubner Heide and the surrounding areas. This connection of what are called natural jewels, so the key valuable elements of green infrastructure, they're going to be joined up with hiking trails and the existing cycling trails. There's going to be more community gardens. This was identified by the residents as something that was missing and necessary in the area. And supporting that is this promotion of a garden culture close to nature, so a bit more natural type of gardening, like permaculture and this type of approach. Trees, shrubs, and hedges along the alleyways were deemed as very important within the strategy to help connect these pieces of green infrastructure across these wide open agricultural landscapes. And a common theme, as Hannah just pointed out as well, is this renaturalization of river and stream corridors and trying to bring them back so they've got more function both for wildlife, to slow down the flow of water across the landscape, and also to change the management of the forests there. There's quite a lot of coniferous forest, and they're slowly in the process of changing that into deciduous blocks of woodland, and at the same trying not to affect the economy too much, trying to balance the economy of the timber production with the natural needs of the area. So you should see, yep, there's my next one. So the benefits and the actors, the main GI benefits that were identified as important by the stakeholders was health and recreation, climate change, the conservation of biodiversity, and tourism. The area is very close to major cities here in this part of Germany, so it has a lot of visitors. The main actors for the implementation of the strategy are the Nature Park Administration itself, the locals, the people who live there, and the nature conservation bodies that are also active in the region. As I said, Sven Riedel, he's the contact for this particular case study, and I'm sure he'd welcome any questions that you have about the case study. Okay, so next up, I'd like to present Dorota Wojnarowicz from the Karkonosze National Park, which is part of the Giant Mountains range on the border with Poland and Czech. Dorota, can you turn your camera and your microphone on, please? And Anka, can you give Dorota the screen sharing, please? Okay. Anka, can you make Dorota have the screen share, please?
I've done it already,
Okay.
but Dorota's maybe out of office. No, she's there.
All right. Dorota, would you mind turning your camera and your microphone on, please? Okay, these things they're sent to trial. We were doing so well.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello. Okay, cool. Right. So
I tried
Dorota.
to do it. And share camera. Oh yes.
Okay.
Now it
Dorota,
works.
the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for introduction. Good afternoon from Karkonosze National Park. I represent the Karkonosze National Park, but the area of our analysis concentrated not only on the national park territory, but also on adjusted Jelenia Góra Valley. Karkonosze is a mountain massif and it's located at the Polish-Czech border. Most characteristic green infrastructure features in our case study area are woodlands, meadows, a system of ponds, rivers, and also very valuable ecosystems located in the upper part of the mountains. It means, for example, dwarf pines, subalpine peat bogs, and other rocky alpine zone. In our Jelenia Góra Valley, we have also the historic landscape parks with the beautiful views towards the mountains. So as you can see on this basic map, the GI covers about 70% of our area. The GI is very diversified and well accessible. And we have national park.
Dorota,
Yeah.
you don't share your screen at the moment. You don't see the map. We don't see the presentation at the moment.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm doing it.
I will try to do something. And now?
No.
What is happening now? No, you don't see?
Okay.
And I will try to do something. Screen.
Yeah, now. So just
now, yes.
presentation open.
Yeah, I opened. Here is my presentation. I can see my slides, and you don't.
We see the Windows Explorer still.
Maybe we will try again.
If you try again, Dorita, it should give you a choice of which screen you can show.
Okay, screen.
Thank you, Ziggy.
Yes, it's good. He is here. Oh, yeah.
Yes, now. So full screen and then.
I put the button, but no, I have problems with it. Oh,
Then yeah, now it's
yeah.
fine.
Okay. Okay. When I finished, I told you about our green infrastructure. Then we have about 70% of green areas, and you can see on this map. And this green infrastructure is very diversified and it's very valuable. So we have the national park, yes, here, and also some Natura 2000 areas around. And the main needs for our GI. So in such a green area, the main need for green infrastructure is to set the boundaries of the sustainable use of the land and the green infrastructure, especially in face of growing tourism and development pressure. It's important to save the existing ecological connectivity and improve water retention. We specified the several issues and challenges identified in our case study area together with our partners and stakeholders. So the first is tourist pressure. It's concentrated especially on the most valuable ecosystems in Karkonosze National Park. We have over 2 million of tourists every year in mountains, and the most popular trails are located in a strict protection zone. So the pressure is still growing. We observe also development pressure, especially in mountain villages. They are outside the park, but the new buildings, especially big apartments, hotels, can cause the loss of connectivity, fragmentation, and loss of biodiversity. We can see another problem that on the mountain meadows, agriculture declined. So we observed the natural succession. So the problem is how to keep these meadows in good quality, with great number of species. We observe also water problems, and this point is somehow connected to these first two ones, because too much water consumption, as well as in mountain hostels and in the villages, because of the majority of tourism. Also, inefficient wastewater management, especially in hostels, mountain hostels. So, additionally, the climate change episodes, dry summer, and in the Jelenia Góra Valley, we observe too intensive river regulations. And our inhabitants complain on smog situations, especially in winter times. So the low emission is a problem in our region. That's why we specify the main aims of our strategy as shaping ecological connectivity, to keep the ecological connectivity, as much as we can, and to improve the state of biodiversity, especially in the town, in the villages, improve water management, implement the GI concept in improving local spatial planning. It's very difficult task and somehow connected on law, but we want to stress that it's very important. And of course, build partnership for the GI in the region. We started to do it during this Magic Landscape project. And here you can see our strategy map. Here we have the Karkonosze National Park border and many other Natura 2000 areas around. Together with our stakeholders, we pointed out several locations with our action plans. So especially they concern the first aim of the strategy, so shaping ecological connectivity and improving the biodiversity. And I would like to pay your attention on these green lines. This is existing green connectivity existing. And we also analyze the development plans from our municipalities to see what is going to happen if these plans will be implemented. So these red circles and crosses and violet points can show the locations where the connectivity can be lost in the future. So I put it some of action plans, and I would like to stress maybe some more interesting. For example, the first, formation and maintenance of habitats. Here I think about the mountain meadows. I think the purchase of abandoned meadow to be mown and grazed. It's our future plan. It's a plan of Karkonosze National Park because we think it's one of the most important thing to save such meadows. Of course, forest and conversion, it's going on, and to put some restrictions in tourist traffic aiming at valuable habitat protection. This second point, establishment of new protected areas, it is interesting because it's coming from our local NGO, our active inhabitants. They claim such action. The municipalities generally are very interested in revitalizing urban green areas, parks, gardens, viewpoints, and also establishment of new areas, green areas, in new forms. So, for example, pocket gardens, they are not so popular, especially here in our part of Poland. So the green bus stops, for example, and of course, flower meadow. The next point is also very interesting. The research on the functionality of ecological corridors. It is our Karkonosze National Park plan because to practically save the connectivity, the green corridors, it's important to have the proofs that they really are, they really function. So this is the task for us. Also, the actions connected with water, recognition of water resources and the places requiring improvement, some interventions like erosion lines, ditches, or small-scale wetlands. And of course, all actions connected with building water retention tanks, wells to slow down the flow of water, foot bridges on trails leading through wetlands on our on Karkonosze National Park area. Of course, it's very important to modernize the sewage infrastructure in mountain hostels. Of course, many actions with inhabitants are very important. So we would like to implement the GI benefits, ecosystem services, and the spatial planning issues to education. We deal with ecological education every day, but I think it's a quite different approach to it. Especially spatial planning, participation of people. So this is very important things to introduce to education, and also outdoor green actions involving children. They are also important. We would like to continue our meetings with our stakeholders. Now we have plans to develop with them a good practice catalog and rules of sustainable development and sustainable tourism. So the workshops and conference are planned. The municipalities also claim the green participatory budgets in municipalities to involve citizens in GI planning. So it is a very good point. And it will be pity that we don't share our data to our partners. So we are developing the geoportal to have all this data gathering together and to develop it, to continue somehow. And of course, upgrading existing spatial planning documents with GI elements, with the connectivity elements, are very important to implement the GI concept into life. And of course, the benefits concentrated on nature conservation and resilience of ecosystems, and what is very important in our mountains, landscape quality, but also water management, mitigation of climate change, and for inhabitants, for residents, the health and well-being is very essential benefit. So quality of the air, recreation places, and the image of places where they live. And they also speak a lot about the partnership that green infrastructure and the actions can gather people and integrate them. So this is very important to carry out the next projects and new GI initiatives. So our main actors and stakeholders, this is very important group. We cooperate through the whole project with them. So some of 7 municipalities on this area. It's also institution responsible for Natura 2000, landscape park administration, state forests, and very important group, NGO and active locals or other also private people. And of course, Karkonosze National Park is also the actor on this area. So this is the contact. Thank you very much. That's all.
Smashing. Thank you very much, Dorota. So I'd like to, the next presenter is Martin Erlebach. Now, Martin, he's from the other side of the hill from Dorota. He's from the Czech side of the Giant Mountains National Park, the Karkonosze National Park. Martin, can you turn on your microphone and your camera, please?
Okay, it's turned. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Over to you.
And does it work, my presentation?
Yes, it's working, Martin.
Fine.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chris, for your introducing me. And now I would like to briefly show some topics regarding our GI strategy and action plans for our case study area of Krkonoše Mountains. Many information was mentioned by Dorota in the previous presentation. Many topics are very similar, but we have some quite a little bit different specified topics and problem in our side of Krkonoše Mountain. At first, I have mentioned some general information about the area. The Krkonoše Mountains case study area is located on the north of Bohemia in the NUTC statistical region, which is called Northeast and consists from region Královéhradecký and Liberecký. Whole area is covered by oldest Czech Mountain National Park. In the pictures you can see typical GI elements, which is typical for our case study. The highest part of Krkonoše Mountains are covered by very valuable ecosystem of Arctic alpine tundra with pinus mugo shrubs and many peat bogs and natural grasslands and rocks and other many variable biotopes. Most of the area is covered by mountain spruce or mixed forest with many landscape and with many landscape services and many GI benefits. The lower parts of the area are mosaic of hilly lands with many villages, many meadows and pastures, and mosaic of forest. As a most significant needs which were identified in our case study area is how to stop biodiversity decrease, how to stop very quite very high level of fragmentation due to tourism intensity. It was mentioned by Dorota, and how support natural landscape function like water balance and so on. Now you can see some pointed topic of our GI strategy. Biodiversity, it's connected with sustainable tourism. There are questions how to decrease the intensity of tourism, and very actual topic last years are water in landscapes and drought, of course. You can see the picture, the map of intensity of fragmentation. In the lower part, the intensity is very high. It's drawn by red color. Only the upper parts of mountains is quite not fragmented. Yeah, you can see the green color, and it's very small area, and the connectivity of landscapes due to tourism is bad. Now in this map are shown the most important GI topics and related action plan in Krkonoše Mountains. You can see the areas, yellow stripes for biodiversity support. It covered typical Arctic alpine tundra and some lower parts of locality of flower meadows, which are hotspots of biodiversity, and we tried support the biodiversity of these habitats. Other topics are connected with sustainable tourism in the map marked by purple stripes and some new educational trails and tourist patch for support of sustainable tourism, and some lines of our new territorial system of ecological stability to reduce the fragmentation of landscapes, especially in the lower parts. The different color show different level of the territorial system of ecological stability from transnational to local. And now I would like to introduce you some most important actions to meet the strategic goals of our strategy. Some of them have been started during the last or during this year. In the first picture, you can see the designed new territorial system of ecological stability through the most fragmented part of area to support connectivity of landscapes and habitat as well. The second and first picture show how we tried to support water management in landscapes, especially in peat bogs or forest landscapes. We built up many small dams to save the water in the landscapes. Other topic connected with sustainable tourism. These pictures show some educational new trails and restoration of old trails to support tourism in the lower locality. And last but not least, the very important topic is biodiversity on the mountains meadows. Of course, grazing and mowing of these meadows are necessary actions to keep biodiversity of many protected and endemic species on this locality. The last slide, it's connected with main benefits. Of course, the most important benefits are connected with nature conservation, tourism and recreation, and education. Many researchers are do their work in Prekonoshe Mountains, water management and disaster prevention. It's connected with flash floods. One of the most important stakeholders can be considered the current administration, because we are the biggest nature conservation authority in whole region. Other stakeholders are municipalities in all area of national park. They cooperate with us on many projects which are founded by Czech programs or European programs. And of course, we cooperate with other regional authorities. That's all from my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. So the next up is Leibniz Institute, Dresden, the Leibniz Institute, and I believe that. Oh no, Henrietta is there. Okay, so
Yeah,
Henrietta Jon is going to give you a rundown of the strategy for the tri-border area of Germany, Poland, and Czech. Henrietta, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to introduce you the strategy for the tri-border region of Czech Republic, Germany, and Poland. This area stretches from the Bohemian Switzerland in the west via the Lusatian Mountains and Jeschken Mountains to the Isar Mountains in the east. Important features of green infrastructure are the Lusatian-Neiße River and its tributaries. This river network connects the three countries, but also the mountain areas with the forests, peat bogs, rocks, mountain meadows, and the lowlands with the cities like Liberec, Zittau, and Bogatynia, but also the agricultural areas. However, between the Lusatian Mountains and the Jizera Mountains, there are a lot of gaps in the green infrastructure. Especially the cities have a lack of green infrastructure, and a lot of these rivers and brooks are straightened or channelized, and their catchment areas offer little in terms of biodiversity and multifunctionality. Yeah, therefore we defined 2 fields of actions for the case study area. First, the creation and enhancement of urban green spaces, and second, the restoration of watercourses, floodplains, and the catchment areas. The strategic aims behind this are to strengthen health and quality of life for the people of the region, to create environmental education opportunities, create opportunities for recreation, and to promote tourism. Furthermore, to protect and increase the biodiversity and establish new GI elements or adapt the management of existing GI as a contribution to sustainable land and soil management, as well as agriculture and forestry. And last but not least, to use green infrastructure for climate change mitigation and adaptation and disaster prevention. The 2 fields of actions, which you can see here with the green and blue hatchings, are implemented by 10 action plans. These are, for example, the implementation of the green infrastructure term and concept into formal planning or into informal development concepts. Furthermore, the creation of new urban green areas by using fallow land, for example, or the improvement of existing green infrastructure in the urban areas and develop them to multifunctional parks or gardens. As example, for the more rural areas, we have actions regarding the restoration of channelized rivers or the catchment areas to avoid erosion, for example. With our strategy, we address 4 main benefit groups. First, health and well-being, education and tourism and recreation. Second, the protection of biodiversity. Third, the land and soil management and sustainable agriculture and forestry. And last but not least, the climate change mitigation and adaptation and disaster prevention. Our main actors to implement the strategy are, for example, the City Urban Development Corporation of Zittau, which is incorporating the GI approach into their urban development concept, or some higher education institutions like the University of Applied Sciences, Zittau-Görlitz, who are implementing the green infrastructure and the services it provides more and more into teaching content. Yeah, another example are other research projects like Rainman, which are important to exchange experiences and to harmonize proposed measures. The German Green Party works as a multiplier of the green infrastructure concept in the region, and the Euro-region NICE is very important because this organization administrates funding programs for transnational projects of the 3 countries. Okay, in case of any questions regarding this region and the strategy, you can contact me or my colleague, Marco Neubert. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Henrietta.
Yeah.
Can I have just a very quick question? related to, because you've touched upon a very important point, and this is transfer of outcomes to the policy level. So you mentioned that the city of Tikau or Bogatynia or Liberec, they want to transfer or integrate green infrastructure strategy into their regional or local planning. So has it already happened, or is there any roadmap how this is going to happen, or in view, let's say, of 1 to 5 years, or how do you see it, or what is the current situation?
Well, there is a first draft of this integrated urban development concept, and there the term is already implemented, and now it has to be decided by the city administration to follow this draft.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's on a good way.
Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Florian Danzinger. I'm from the Department of Botany and Biodiversity Research at the University of Vienna. And together with my colleague Stefan Fuchs and our supervisor Thomas Rübker, we have been working on the case study area Eastern Waldviertel and Western Weinviertel, as well as the comprising Thaital National Park, together with our partners from the National Park Management, David Freudl and Director Christian Übel. Our case study area, Eastern Waldviertel and Western Weinviertel, is located in northeast Austria and consists of parts of the Lower Austrian regions, Waldviertel, which can be translated to wood quarter, and Weinviertel, which translates to wine quarter, and is bordering the Czech Republic. The Waldviertel part of our case study area in the west is characterized by forestry and agriculture, and is shaped by the highlands of a shallow gneiss landscape, while the Weinviertel part of our case study area in the east is characterized by wide valleys and molasses sediments with rolling hills, and therefore is dominated by intense agricultural use and viticulture. Climatically, the transition from the humid Atlantic climate in the Waldviertel to the dry Pannonian climate of the Weinviertel is also characteristic for the region. And all these multiple border, or rather transition situations, are responsible for the high diversity in flora, fauna, and habitats in the region. The most important and characteristic elements of GI in the area are dry and xeric grasslands, meadows and wetlands, extensively cultivated vineyards, species-rich broadleaf forests, field margins, hedgerows, and woodlots in the agricultural landscape, orchard meadows, and streams and ponds. Due to the predominant intensive agricultural use of the land, a specific need for green infrastructure exists in the agricultural landscapes as well as the fruit and wine growing landscape, but also in the vicinity of wetlands and channeled rivers and the rural and urban settlements. In addition, the current damages by the bark beetle in large parts of the region's forests calls to act in supporting and promoting local GI in these areas. In addition, a number of key issues could be identified by the use of participatory methods and the broad involvement of stakeholders and institutions, which are the increasing intensification of agriculture and which leads to more and more cleared and featureless landscapes. In contrast, the abandonment of agriculture on marginal land and in remote locations that threat especially grasslands and dry grasslands, but also the invasive spreading of Robinia in the area. I already mentioned the monotone spruce plantation and channel river sections, And the fragmentation and disconnectedness of GI elements in the region is a problem in general. Yeah, based on these framework conditions and issues, we therefore developed a strategy targeting the following strategic aims: the improvement and preservation of the diversity of species and habitats in the agricultural and wine growing landscape, the promotion of green infrastructure as a leisure and educational resource, the improvement of resilience and sustainability to natural resources, to increase the welfare function of GI along transport networks, the reduction of flood events through GI alongside bodies of water, and the improvement of land use as well as land and soil management to prevent soil erosion, and the adaptation and mitigation to climate change, and the adaptation to long periods of drought, especially in agriculture. By using the results of the assessment of functionality and connectivity, as my colleague Stefan showed you before, we combined these results with local knowledge and were able to define the following specific action plans and locate areas of these actions spatially explicit in the case study area. The enhancement of the featureless agricultural landscape by introducing landscape elements such as hedges, field margins, or flower strips, the conversion of spruce plantations to climate-adapted tree species appropriate to local conditions, as well as the designation of natural forest reserves where they are still left, creation of retention and buffer areas, widening and promoting small water bodies, as well as an increase of the structural diversity of riverbeds and bank areas of water bodies and wetland habitats. Another action plan would be the preservation and the return to a more traditional land use in the fruit and wine growing complex landscapes and their various structures such as slopes, rows of trees, and individual trees that are lost over wide areas. The targeted maintenance and resumption of traditional forms of use in grassland-dominated habitats, such as mowing and grazing for dry grasslands, meadows, and pastures. And finally, the promotion of green areas in urban and rural settlements, such as home gardens and parks, but also, as the picture in the middle indicates, areas associated with road and the rail network. An overarching action plan would be the establishing and the securing of habitat corridors to reconnect protected areas, to improve an effective biotope network, and to increase the connectivity of the landscape in general. In the implementation of all these action plans, the most important GI benefits raised by the local stakeholders and institutions in workshops and consultations could be considered. The most important ones were conservation benefits, tourism and recreation, disaster prevention, land and soil management, agriculture and forestry, and finally investment and employment. As we learned today, the broad approach of green infrastructure calls for an equally broad spectrum of actors and institutions as implementers. And during the last 3 years, we were able to get in touch with these various decision makers, from municipalities to protected area authorities, individuals and institutions of the agricultural sector, NGOs, infrastructure operators, and many more, which we hopefully convinced of the multiple advantages of GI and the urgent need to invest in and to preserve the human well-being provided by GI, and of course the economic welfare of GI in especially this region. yeah, I thank you for your attention. Please free to look up our entire strategy in detail and ask questions now in the comment section or later on by mail. And for all our local stakeholders that are present right now, we will have a local final conference at the National Park Thayertal if the regulation allows us. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Florian. Okay, our next speaker is David Freudel. He's from the National Park Thayertal, and he's going to talk you through their strategy as well. So, David, you are the new presenter. You can share your screen now.
So, good afternoon, everybody. Hello and welcome from the Thayertal National Park. Yes, I'm here to introduce our strategy and action plan and the national park itself, which lies in the very north of Austria, north to the Czech border, actually. And it's a transboundary national park. So we have the national park on the Austrian side, which is the smallest of the 6 Austrian national parks. It only has 1,360 hectares. And on the Czech side, we have the national park Podi, and together we actually form one unit, one natural unit. It's the valley of the river Thaya or Die, which we are protecting together. It's our border river, and it forms one natural unit. And it's for us very important to highlight that GI doesn't know any boundaries, any borders. And so it's our role in this project to make the bridge over the borders. The national park itself, the main GI in the national park is the mixed deciduous forest. As you can see on the map, it's very green, and that's because we consist of over 90% of forest. So we have 91% of a very natural near state forest, and under 10% is actually managed or in some kind regulated land. Which in most parts is meadows or dry grasslands. So you might wonder, why is a national park, which has over 90% of forests in a natural state, so interested in green infrastructure? And the reason is that we are in a very flat area, in a flat land, which is surrounded by very heavy agricultural used land. And for national parks, it's very important, or their main task is actually the protection and promotion of biodiversity. And for us to fulfill this task, it's very important to be well connected with our surrounding land, with other habitats, and with other protected areas. And elements of gene infrastructure are helping us, and that's why we're supporting it, to get a better connection to our surroundings. Since in regions with national parks, we tend to say, oh, we have the national park, so the rest of the area can be used heavily, but it's actually very important for all to benefit from the national parks to be well connected. So that's one of the key issues, and also the strategic aim is to work across borders on Czech Austrian side, and to lessen the difference between protected areas and economical land, economically and conventionally used land that surrounds us. So we have specific actions planned, which is, first of all, the communication activities, which is raising awareness, as we said, just to raise awareness about green infrastructure, and that it's important even in the region where we have national parks. It's very important for national parks, generally for protected areas or core areas of green infrastructure. So we have the communication activities. We also have the management of meadows and dry grasslands. It's on one side in the national park itself. That's what we need for a high biodiversity, but it's also in the surrounding of the national parks. There are spots or bits of lands that are actually breaking up the agricultural use, and so we support and promote also this meadows and dry grassland management outside of the national park borders. Then also environmental education and recreation. It's also the national park is accessible to the people, and it's also for us important that when people are visiting the national park that we highlight the need and the importance of green infrastructure in the area. Then we also have a display garden, which is supposed to highlight people or to look after their gardens, especially in urban areas, because they also play a very important important role in the region, since many villages and towns in our area are surrounded by heavily agricultural used land, and so the gardens are actually very important in the urban areas. And then the habitat network. That's the connectivity I mentioned in the beginning to other regions. So this is our action plan and our strategy map, which is highlighting let's go through this. When you see those lines, those dotted lines, that's actually our habitat network. So those are the lines that we put over the maps we created in this project that actually shows for us as a national park authority, where it's very important to improve green infrastructure just to get this connectivity to other habitats. Then, of course, the communication measures. Then in the pink color, we see the dry grasslands that need to be managed and should stay maintained, which we are supporting within and outside the national park borders. Then, of course, environmental education, and then the gardens in the urban areas. So yeah, the main benefits of those activities were, of course, structural diversity, the habitat network, and also for the people in the area, the recreation and the educational value. Of course, we as authority, we can do a lot within our borders, but not as much outside of our borders. That's more as a supportive role, a communication role, where we talk to local municipalities, to local authorities, and of course to private landowners, just to show them the importance of green infrastructure in the region. And that's actually it from my side.
Okay, smashing. Thank you very much, David. It's looking good. So we're a little bit over time, but I don't think it matters. What does matter is what does matter is that you get to see what we've done in this project. If it takes a little bit longer, then I'm sorry about that. I'd like to introduce part number 9. This is Simonetta Alberico. Simonetta is from the Metropolitan City of Turin, and Simo is going to talk about her strategy. Okay, Simonetta, over to you.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay.
That's fine.
Well, I'm from Metropolitan City of Turin. That is a public administration. Our territory is located in the northwest of Italy, within the Piedmont region, and just near the border with the France, and it includes the large city of Turin. This is our case study areas that is located towards east and includes very important GE elements. First of all, the Po River, that is the longest river in Italy, and a very rich secondary hydrographic network, a fertile arable lands on the west and south, and a hilly landscape you can see here that is on the east side of our case study areas, and that is mostly wooded. This area, thanks to its richness on water and productive land, has been affected during the years by a wide urbanization and industrialization. And of course, as a consequence, a lot of its habitats and natural ecosystem were deeply modified. So the main key issues we identified in our case study area are great urban expansion, urban sprawl in the countryside, and alongside urbanization of the main roads that caused of course, the loss of biodiversity and ecological connectivity, but also hydrogeological fragility of the hilly areas, reduction of biodiversity and connectivity, almost in rural areas, and a lack of healthy natural environment around the city for recreational activities. With the involvement of the local administrator and the stakeholders, we pointed out in each of the case study, the sector of the case study areas, 10 sectors in total, the main strategies to implement through the green and blue in infrastructure. Just okay. Here is the map that summarizes the main issues and objectives to pursue, such as the prevention and mitigation of soil erosion and instability, with the increase of wooded areas or riparial and perifluvial vegetation, or a more sustainable management of rural, urban, and peri-urban context by preserving and increasing GI elements such as edges and rows alongside the rural fields, or green public parks in the cities, or recovering degraded areas. And then the protection and enhancement of the landscape value areas, such as parks or Natura 2000 sites, just in order to increase people's chance to enjoy them. At the end, with the cooperation of 4 local municipalities, and also with the involvement of some local stakeholders, we detailed into a specific action plan one of the objectives identified in the strategic map. It was the objective environmental and landscape valorization of Arignano Lake and its surroundings. And the actions identified were organized into 3 packages. Actions for the ecological and natural valorization, action for the improvement of a more sustainable public fruition, and action to adopt, to introduce an environmental management system. Of course, public administrators at various levels must be the ones that have the main role by including rules and regulation within their territorial and urban plans. And of course, the final stakeholders will be all the citizens, as they are the ones that are enjoying the benefits produced by the GI. It's all from Turin. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Simonetta. So next up, it's Jean-Lou's colleague, Simone Ciaramidaro from the Italian National Agency of New Technology, Sustainable Economy and Economic Growth. And Simone is going to take you through the green infrastructure strategy for the Upper Po Valley.
Yes. Hello,
Hi,
do you
Simone.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, mate. Can you make your presentation full screen, please?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, over to you, Simone.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to introduce you to the other Italian case study area, the Upper Po Plain. It is, will it move? Yes. It is geographically located in northwest of Italy, in the regions of Piedmont and Lombardia, and the provinces of Torino, Vercelli, Alessandria, and Pavia. It corresponds to the touristic area of the Po Park, the Po River Park, just downstream of the other Italian case study area. The major GI elements of the area are the Po River Corridor, the Monferrato Wood Hills, and the rice fields wetlands of Vercelli. We can have a single glance to these elements watching this picture with the rice paddies in the background, the Po River in the middle with this corridor, and the picture was shot from the Monferrato Hills. Let's go on. Okay. The analysis of the area with an approach, participated approach done during the project made it possible to highlight the major needs for the GI. These are the connection among the GI core areas, the creation of a slow transport system for sustainable tourism, and improving the integrity of irrigation networks and agricultural management. Actually, these main GI needs are linked to the issue that were identified with the application of the methodologies that were described in the previous presentations. They are the lack of ecological connection in some sectors of the Po River Corridor and the park, some areas with low naturalness, so they need to improve and enlarge core areas, the hydrological risks from the territories along the Po River, so flood risk, the poor air quality in a very polluted area like the Po Plain in North Italy, and the presence of intensive agriculture. On the basis of this key issue and of the analysis of other already existing management plans in the area, it was possible to identify the principal aims of the strategy that are listed here. We can focus on the most important, talking about the specific action plan to fulfill the aims of the strategy. These actions are improvement of the ecological integrity of the minor hydrological networks, working on the banks and on the vegetation along these minor rivers, recovering and strengthening the minor roads for the realization of cycle and pedestrian paths, increasing connectivity between natural elements, especially along the Po River corridor. This working on the vegetation in riparian and lowland areas and on the morphology of the river. Finally, the identification of mode for sustainable management of rice paddies. This map shows the location of the main actions that should be realized. We can see in green the Po River and its corridor with the main tributaries. Then in blue there is the major flood risk areas, and in red the cycle path that should be first realized. The main GI benefits addressed by the strategy are conservation benefits, disaster prevention, and climate change mitigation and adaptation. But also agriculture and forestry, water management, tourism, and recreation were taken into account. The major actors for the implementation of the strategy are, of course, the Po Park, the two regions, Piemonte and Lombardia, and the 4 provinces, as well as municipalities, landowners, and national and local associations. Now here you can see the 2 contacts from Enea, Gianluigi Rossi, and from the Po Park, Dario Zocco. And quickly, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Simone. I know it's difficult being the last man.
Yes.
You've had to wait all day. Okay, cool. So I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you very much to all of the partners for, well, all of the work over the last 3 years and 4 months. And yeah, it's been a pleasure doing it. It really has. There's still a little bit more work to do though, so don't rest on your laurels. I'd just like to have a few sort of roundup points, observations from what we've been talking about in the presentations, and you know, where do we go through? Where do we go to next? I mean, we have the lead from the European Union with its Green Deal, funded through changes funding the Horizon project. We have Interreg Central Europe, which is also going to take this idea forwards. I dare say there are other European programs that will do that as well. But we can't rely on funding all the time. We have to work with private and public bodies as well. And I can see that through these strategies, a lot of those connections have already been made. It's quite reassuring. I think what we did realise during this project was the communication of the concept was sorely needed. And you know, we have made a lot of progress in there, but I think there's still more to be done, especially outside of those case study areas. I think further cross-border cooperation will definitely be needed as we carry on. Another thing was I noticed through a lot of the presentations that we have lots of unused green infrastructure that we can make better use of, particularly those outside of the national parks, because actually within the national parks we find that the very valuable GI in terms of biodiversity and other functions is actually under an awful lot of pressure, particularly so in the mountainous regions. The other thing that we also tried to get across in the project was to not forget that GI is a multi-sectoral approach. It's not just for conservationists and NGOs. You know, we need the water management people on board. We need agriculture on board. We need town planners on board. It's not enough. Health benefits. I was reading today that the UK government, God bless them, have actually put some money back away to encourage the use of green spaces as part of improving people's mental health. And I think we saw that during the periods of lockdown across Europe in March, April, May, June, and continuing in some places, unfortunately. The real value of those green spaces, and you don't realize, you know, what you've got until it's gone, or you can't access it. So we really need to push our evaluation of green infrastructure and communicate its value to people. Yeah, I think that's probably where I want to round up. It's been quite a long day, and we've had some great presentations, and there's an awful lot of information. So what I'd like to do is say thank you once and all for attending. I know it's difficult to sit through such a long thing. Thank you once again to the partners for being so supportive and making this such a great project. And I'd like to hand over to Professor Elmar Čaplović. He would like to give just a little end speech, so to say. Okay, Elmar, if you wouldn't mind turning your microphone on, please.
So hopefully everything works well. I'm back again after a long afternoon, and hopefully there are some participants still ready to attend just a few minutes of summing up on my part. Of course, it's an advantage for the project director to take the bits which are not really definitely focusing on the project, but on the topic and the thematic issues as such. I want to confront you just in 2-3 minutes with something which I think fits perfectly into the presentations and which fits perfectly also in these words Chris has now formulated so nicely. The first key word for me is the term which was coined by a professor of psychology at the University of Washington, Peter Kahn. He talked about the environmental generational amnesia. And he meant that this is something which happens in the terms that from generation to generation, the environment into which a generation is born is somehow understood as the norm. So as we know that the environment standards are declining, we cannot neglect that. We have to be aware that this baseline of understanding what nature, what environment is, has dramatically changed. So we have to be aware that not only at the level of generations, but also at the level of political, cultural, and social milieus, there is a very different understanding of what environment, what nature is. And it becomes very clear in this research, and it's also, of course, very understandable, that it ends up with the conclusion that it is not enough to teach or stimulate people, which is, of course, important, into having a broader view and into getting involved into environmental protection or nature protection. But it is very important to interaction themselves. That brings me to the second point I want to stress very briefly. It's the documentary films which we have produced in the frame of that project. Chris stated it, mentioned it at the very beginning. There is 5 documentary films which are ready, which will be available via our homepage, via a link, hopefully then in October, mid-October, into a YouTube channel. 5 series which have been focusing on presenting, on discussing, on talking with people who are really involved, who are locals, who represent people who are confronted with the changes of the environment, with the threats on the environment. These 5 films tackle the 5 study or project regions, from the tree border region and the Dubna through the giant mountains into the Kiosko region in southern Moravia, to the Weinviertel region, and into the Piemonte region with the Colline Torinese and the Upper Po Valley. So these films show how we have to work beyond our strategies. Jianlu pointed it out very sarcastically, but it's a truth that often such strategies are books of dreams. So we need the people who live with the environment to get them involved and to convince them. Actually, I think, and that's my closure statement now, actually, from the philosophical point of view, I think it's interesting to think about the fact, and it's not me, it was also, for example, Jose Lutzenberger who pointed it out in the 80s. It's a very obscene situation to some extent that we have to be aware that we have to protect landscapes against our own destructiveness. Maybe this is a thought which is worthwhile to think about. We need conservation. We need, of course, protection of the environment, protection of areas. But the facts as such that we protect against our own destructiveness in the terms of societies, not individuals. There are many NGOs, of course, but in the broader sense is a quite strange thought. So I want to conclude, and I want to say thank you on my part as the project director, once again to all our members in the project consortium, to our partners from the Piedmont to the German, southeastern Germany, to southern Poland, Silesia, to northern Bohemia, to Austria and the Czech Republic, in southern Moravia and in Vienna, and at the borderline between Austria and the Czech Republic into the area of Torino. Thanks a lot to all of you. Thanks organizational staff. Thanks, of course, to my lead partner team. They behaved very, very wonderful. So I'm really thankful to Anke, Chris, and Natalia. So thanks a lot to all of you. I want to close with a statement which Gianni Vattimo, I think one of the most eminent philosophers of the second half of the 20th century, who was an interviewee, he was a discussion partner in the Italian film, in the Italian documentary, stated in the frame of his talking with the filmmaker, the Prague-based Alenka Ovčáčková. He said, of course, among others, that I quote, I would say, Gianni Vattimo, that landscape and democracy are very strongly related. Because who can resist the logic of capitalist development for the sake of the landscape? Only the people living in the landscape can defend it. I think that's worthwhile also to be aware of. Thanks to all my partners. I see you, a lot of you now on the screen. Thanks a lot, and stay tough and stay close, and we will not lose ourselves in the virtual deserts of viral impacts. We will survive, and we will continue with our work. Thanks a lot to all of you, and thanks to the participants of the conference. 55 still, that's not too bad. Thank you, bye-bye.
Okay, hello, you lot. Thanks a lot. I'm going to call it today, and Elmar's given his final speech. So with this, I think we can call it an end. All right, I'll be in touch. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, and greetings to Lubor once more.
Thank
to
you very
Vienna,
much.
to the
Greetings
PKF.
to
Thank you
Nathan.
for your attendance, of course.
Thank you for a great final conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lubor.
Look forward to
All the
reading
best for you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.